Okay. Hi there, everyone. I'm author Reed, and I am so excited to be here today as the moderator for our Writer's Workout presentation. This is a panel of authors who have published small presses. I'm excited because I, too, am an author that has published with small indie presses. I'll show off some of my books real fast so you can see. So I've published 3 books so far with small independent publishers. And so this will be really exciting to go around, learn a little bit more from authors who have chosen that path and to understand, why it's been a good fit for them. So first we'll go around and everyone's going to introduce themselves and then we'll start answering some questions. All right, Mariah, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I am Mariah Stillbrook. I am with a small press called Creative James Media, and I have 3 books with them. 1, 2 more of these coming out this year. So it's a trilogy. And these beautiful one.
All right, Jeremy.
Hi, my name is Jeremey Harrison. I am with the small press Lake Country Press, and I published my first book with them, The Island of Forever.
I'm Katy Metzger. Is it my turn?
Yeah.
I'm Katy Metzger. I have a deal for a 5-book series with Future House Publishing. 3 of those books have been published. We've got 1 and 2 and 3.
I am Alexandria Faulkenbury, and I am with Apprentice House Press, and my first novel is coming out in May with them.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much, guys. So happy to have all of you here. Okay, so we're going to jump right into it. So I think the big question that I hear a lot from people is, what made you decide to go with a small independent publishing house? And how did you find them? There's a lot out there when you're doing just a Google search. So how did you get connected with the publisher that you're with? And why did you decide to publish your books with an independent publisher? Mariah?
So I was in the query trenches for probably about 10 years. And I was just starting to think about small presses and researching them a little bit. And I was doing a Twitter pitch event. And that is how I got connected with Creative James Media, because they liked one of my pitches. And so I did a little research and I looked into them. And the way they did it was they reached out via email and asked about a Zoom call. So we actually kind of like interviewed each other first. And I was like, okay, this sounds good. And for me, it sounded like a great place to start because after that long in the query trenches, everybody knows it's exhausting. You start to give up hope. It's a roller coaster. So this was a really good way to just give me a break. It's been a great platform to stand on. And they originally picked up this one in the Pines. And then after a few months, they asked if I had anything else. And that's when I gave them The Lost Irvine. And eventually they picked up Hall of Shadows. So that's how we connected.
Great. Jeremy?
Yeah, I kind of have a similar experience as well. I started with Lake Country Press. I was following them on Twitter for a very long time, and I was kind of like a fanboy of theirs. I didn't really have a book ready at the time, so I was just kind of like biding my time and liking all of their things on Twitter. I had a bunch of small presses that I were following, but I loved Lake Country Press. I thought their covers were beautiful. It seemed like they had a really good community of authors. And when I felt my book was finally ready, I pitched directly to them. So I think I have kind of a unique experience where I didn't really go like the query route with like agents or anything like that. I don't know, kind of was the fanboy that got into a publishing house.
So I'm kind of like Mariah. I started out querying agents, and that was the route that I wanted to take. And sort of in between rejections was heavily revising, but also watching a lot of the dialogue that was going on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it. And I kept seeing them talking about how, agents don't like series. Agents want a standalone, and it's a very hard sell to get an agent when you have a series. And just started really paying attention to what was going on in the publishing industry, and started to become more and more aware of small press and the opportunities with small press. But there are a lot of small presses that not only would take a series or look at it, but they wanted it. They believe in that philosophy that readers are out there and want a series. And so that started to look very attractive to me, because I have a very hard time writing standalones and novellas and short stories. And so I started to really pay attention to them and look at them, and actually really pursued them. I just completely stopped querying agents and just started querying small presses. And so I found some on Query Tracker and Manuscript Wishlist. But eventually I found Future House Publishing through another small press author's blog. She had recorded a lot of the presses that she herself had queried, along with the ones that she had signed with. And that was really, really helpful, because a lot of them were already vetted, and I knew that I was getting some quality. And another benefit, I'll just tack this on, a lot of small presses will let you submit the full manuscript. So there was no full manuscript request. They just got to read the whole book and decided that they wanted it. So.
That's great.
I also started down the path of querying for a while, and pretty early on in my querying journey, I had a close call with an editor from a much bigger press than the one I'm with now. And I thought, oh, great, this is it. They want my book. And then we had the phone call, and the editor was like, I want to talk about some things that we would need to work on. And I was like, great, I'm really open. And I told my husband before the call, the only thing that I'm not open to is changing the ending of the book, because it's can be slightly divisive. And I was like, I'll change anything else, but I just can't change the ending. And the very first thing that she said was, you got to change the ending. And so I thought about it. She gave me a week to think about it. And I really went through every possibility in my mind. I was like, even if this worked out, it wouldn't be the book I wanted it to be, with a different ending. So I ended up saying no. And then I actually went to a webinar very similar to this, where people were sharing about small presses that they'd gone with. And there was someone with Apprentice House, and she talked about how helpful they were and how much she got to have control over her work. And that was really appealing to me. So I set my manuscript in, and they said, sounds great, and did not ask me to change the ending.
Yay. That's a very good ending to the story. Yes. Well, good. So some of you touched on a little bit of this, what our next question is. And so I'm excited to dig into it more. So what are the benefits that you have found in working with your small press? I think we've all heard the horror stories from authors with, big houses, and they kind of feel like a number. They don't necessarily get that direct attention, or maybe there's only one person there that they have a connection with, that they talk to. So I'm really interested to see, what your experience has been with your small press, how much connection that you have with them, and anything else you can tell us. So Mariah?
Yes, of course. I quickly want to touch on something too that, like Alex, I had actually had a conversation with a agent at one point, and for In the Pines, which is narrated by two different voices, she wanted me to take it down to one voice, which was, and it's two main characters, two sisters, but she wanted me to do the voice of the sister that's way more angsty and isn't actually the very main character. So I understand that, Alex, being like, no, even though I've been in the quarry trenches forever, no. But back to the small press, there is actually, you feel seen a lot more, I would say. Not that I've been at a big press, but I do have a friend who's with Big Five, and we talked about it. And she was like, I was telling her my experience, how I can just email the CEO directly and talk to her pretty much whenever I want. And even though she's a busy person, she gets back to me as soon as she can. And so she was like, I don't have any of that. She's like, I'm talking to a third party all the time. So you do feel like you get a little more attention. It's kind of like a smaller class size, I guess, if you put it in that perspective. And I do feel like they're being with a small press, because I don't like to just stick to one genre. I'm definitely a fantasy and horror author, but I also have some speculative stuff in my future, and some sapphic literary fiction kind of stuff. And I don't know, I've already had agents that I've talked to that are like, well, I would only represent you for this one genre. And I would only do adult versus young adult. And I like to write both age groups. So it's kind of nice being able to kind of do what you want, write what you want. But there are some other things, like you don't have the distribution you might have with Big Five. But also you could get an agent who takes you to another small press. So there's that. But yeah, I've had a pretty good experience. Definitely thinking of, I'm back in the query trenches with my next projects, just because I want to see what it's like if I can try to snag an agent second time around. But honestly, I've only been doing it for a few months, so I don't have a lot of feedback on that. But yeah, that's what I have on that.
That's great.
For me, I mean, I've had a really great experience. I know that I said I didn't really like query or anything. I also am super impatient. I hate waiting. And when I did query, I mean, I know the owners very well of like Country Press now. And like I said earlier, I felt that they had such a great community, and they do. I mean, their authors are super tight knit. We talk, I would say, pretty much daily. If we ever need any feedback, we can always lean on them to help. The owner of Lake Country Press, I mean, you can call her any time of the day or night. She's up working on other projects and books and things like that. So I've just had a really, really great experience with them. And have other friends. They've also gotten, with Lake Country Press, the authors have also gotten agents from their books published by Lake Country Press. And as I was thinking about going, like, do I query? Do I find an agent? Do I go with a small press? There was a lot of, I don't know, information online, especially on Twitter, of people that were part of Big Five Publishing, where it almost seemed like it blurred the lines between self-pubbing, small press, and getting an agent and doing that whole thing. The lines kind of blurred of. There was a lot more open conversation around marketing and the author's actual purpose within a publishing house. And I don't know, I just kind of took all that into consideration when I was deciding on a small press. And I said, well, I would have more control with a small press, right? I would work closer with the publisher, and I wouldn't have to change as much, like Mariah and Alexandria said. I kind of liked that aspect. I liked having the control and a voice for my own book, whereas a lot of people with Big Five said, they kind of do everything. I don't really have a voice after that. I just have to market it and do everything that I need to do. So I liked the control with the small press, kind of like Mariah said.
Yeah, whenever people ask me about small press, I always kind of describe it as having kind of 1 foot in trad and 1 foot in indie publishing, because one of the big reasons why I went with small press was not to be boring, but financial. I didn't feel like I could afford the thousands of dollars that it would take to self-publish a book and do it well. So for me, it kind of had to be traditional publishing, but as you query and you get feedback and rejections, and the full request that I had that told me my series, my first book, needed to be a standalone, and they needed to wrap up that adventure and then move on to something else. And I'm just sitting there going, but that's not the story. That's not the vision I have for the story. It doesn't work that way. And then you see small presses who, actually like the longer story, like I was saying before, and like Mariah and Jeremy were saying, you know, you have this creative ability. I get feedback from an entire team of interns who will read the book when I submit it for each book in the series and give me just a ton of beta level developmental feedback. But it's ultimately my call what I do with it. If it doesn't, you know, match my vision, I can run it past my own personal beta readers. I can run it past my editor. I feel very comfortable emailing my project manager. My editor has become like a close friend that I can, you know, just kind of be like, what do you think about this? Do you agree with this comment? What would you do? You know, do you have a suggestion? And we'll just start brainstorming ideas on how to make it better. Because I got really stuck on this last book and we were emailing back and forth. And she said something. I was like, that's it. That's exactly what I need to do. And it just became exactly what I was trying to get it to be. And then I will email my marketing director just all the time, be like, hey, I want to do this. You know, are you guys on board? You know, how do we make this happen? How do I, you know, pull this off? And he'll just have a whole bunch of ideas of what's possible, how they can support me through it. I mean, they can't always because they're a small operation, but I've been really impressed with the way that they will try to get me physical copies for giveaways and just how they're willing to work with me to make things happen so that I can try different things and try to make this work. So it's been a really good experience. I don't have really the big 5 connections, so I don't really know what that would be like, but being able to tell the story the way that I wanted to tell it, to have that vision, and then also that close personal connection to have a book out on the shelf 6 months after I signed the deal rather than waiting 2 years. All those things were just very, very attractive. So yeah, kind of similar to what everybody else was saying.
I would just echo pretty much what everyone else said, and I'll add one unique feature. So Apprentice House is based at Loyola University in Maryland, and so they're a teaching press. So there are a lot of students involved in the process. And so that's been actually a lot of fun because you have all these young students who are going into book publishing, and that's what they want to do. And they bring like another level of excitement, you know, they read your book and are so jazzed about promoting it and so jazzed about helping you figure out your cover. So that makes you all the more excited. So I would say getting to work with students and getting to work with people who are going to be, you know, tomorrow's book publishing industry has been kind of a fun and unique feature about working with Apprentice House.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that there's, you know, some hands on there. That's very cool. And yes, Katie, what you touched on, you know, with having those calls and having input on the marketing side of things, I think that's really, you know, a big thing that I've loved about small press. And Jeremy, the fact that you can call your publisher in the middle of the night, I love that. And
I swear she doesn't sleep. We call her a vampire, actually.
oh, that's hysterical. Okay, so my question now, I'd like to know, are your plans to continue working with small press? I mean, you've kind of touched on it, all of you. And tied to that, do you have a project that you want to kind of promote that's maybe going to be coming out, your next book in a series or something else? So Mariah, we'll start with you.
Well, I do officially have 2 books coming out, like I kind of mentioned in the beginning. The last 2 in my Irvine trilogy are going to both be releasing this year. The second book comes out in April. But as far as future projects that aren't under contract yet, I do have a couple. But my favoriteest one to talk about is my 90s horror Betsy, about a possessed mannequin in small town rural Iowa. So, it's very like Grady Hendrix and very queer, and I cannot wait for it to get out there. I am definitely in the query trenches with that one right now. I have a little hiccup. It's a little long, so I'm trying to shave it, but I'm having trouble with it. So that's kind of, I've already had a couple agents be like, 127,000 words is too long. And I'm like, I know, but it's also a fantasy horror. So I'm dealing with that. But yeah, I'm kind of just seeing where the road takes me right now. I am trying to search for an agent while also looking into other like bigger small presses, I guess. I'm happy at Creative James Media, but I also just want more. Like I mean, they are a small operation and I just really want a little more help with all the marketing and stuff because I'm a stay-at-home mom to a 4-year-old. I don't have a ton of resources to get out of my house. So like it would be nice to have a little extra help out there. But yeah, like I said, we'll see where it goes. Follow me on social media and see.
Jeremy?
I think, I mean, I totally agree with marketing. I think that's always going to be a constant with small presses is that, you kind of have to do the marketing yourself and it's hard. And, just to get your book out there, it's not just writing it, it's the marketing and continuously marketing that is the struggle for me because I just don't know what to do. I'm like, are people bored of this? Are they bored of me talking about this book 200 million times? Because I'm kind of bored of it. I do have, so right now I am finishing up revisions on my next project. It is an adult dystopian romance, which I'm really excited about. So writing this book, I wrote it over the course of like years and years and years. I would put it down, pick it back up. So by the end of my publishing journey with it, I was kind of like, I cannot read this book anymore. I have read it like 100 million times over the course of like 10 years. So writing something like new and fresh has been kind of like reignited my like passion and like drive for writing. So every time I revise this book, it's so exciting for me. And I kind of felt like I lost that spark kind of towards the end of my first. So it's been really like re-energizing for me to write this new book. I don't really have a title yet or anything. I kind of have like 10 that I keep going back and forth with. So I can't really say what it is or very much about it. Besides it's dystopian romance. We have a little vampire, a little, end of the world stuff happening, which is kind of like paralleling what's happening right now, which is kind of freaky to me. And it was not planned. And I just kind of look for that, I don't know, that hit of dopamine that I get when I write. So I have a bunch of things that are on the back burner and I'm looking for that spark to drive me to them. And we'll see if it ever happens, but I mean, if you do want to follow up with me, it's at Jeremy H. Writes on all social medias.
Yeah, I'm just going to take it kind of project by project. I'm happy with small press. I've had a really good experience. I'm still under contract for 2 more books in the Talismans of Terrigen series. And so that's where all of my focus is for the most part right now. I do have like 3 other works in progress planned out, but I haven't started writing them yet. And so I think it's just going to kind of depend on what I see coming out of the publishing industry, what the market seems to be doing, what the comp titles would be, if I think it would fit into a larger house, if I think it has a chance at getting an agent, or if it's another niche type urban fantasy and belongs, in a smaller house, a smaller setting with, readers who are looking for that particular brand of writing. My next project is a dark academia that I'm pretty excited about, but since I have not yet written a word of it, I'm not going to talk about it very much. So yeah, I'm just going to kind of see where we are when I actually finally get it written and where I think it's going to fit the best.
And my first book is not out yet, comes out in May. So that's kind of been where all my energy is right now, is just getting ready for the book launch and promotions, et cetera, et cetera. But I do have another finished manuscript that needs a lot of editing. I just got it back from some critique partners. And so once kind of I get through a little bit more of this promotion cycle for this first book, then I'm going to go back to that. And then kind of similar to what Katie said, kind of take it project by project and see what opportunities are out there and where I think the book might fit best.
Awesome. So before we jump off of our conference call here, and I want to go around and ask for any additional tips, tricks, secrets, things that you might want to share with people that are, you know, either new or maybe there's writers out there that are looking to change small press, just really anything that you have that you want to share with our viewers. So Mariah, we'll start with you.
I honestly think the best route you can ever take is make more writer friends. That's really, I mean, you're gonna make more contacts who know anything you don't. So I'm an extreme introvert, and it took me a really long time to get involved with social media. And I do think that is one reason it took me so long to get published. So I think getting out there, getting uncomfortable, that's really where it's at. And get on social media, go to writer conferences, go to libraries and see what they have there for writer resources, and meet people, because it's not, I mean, even if you get there on your own, you still need your peer support, because this is a really hard gig and you're either really, really happy or really, really in the dumps. So you just need people. That's my biggest advice.
Yeah, I think that's honestly one of the best advice that one of the best things I can say is find your people. Find writing friends that can like almost commiserate with you when you would just want to throw your manuscript out. I don't know how many times I go through these highs and lows so hard, and that's why I love Lake Country Press. They kind of like, in my first book, in my acknowledgments, I called them my personal therapist, because I was like, are you sure you want to sign this? Because you don't need to. And I know we're like 4 months out of publication, but like you can take it back. You don't need to have this book. So find your people that you can bounce ideas off of, that will help and give you honest feedback. I think that's the biggest thing. If you are looking for like small presses, make sure to read your contracts. I think that's a huge thing too. I've heard a lot of horror stories of, you know, they just were excited, you know, that somebody was interested, and read your contracts, make sure that they, you know, also work with other people on editing, and, you know, don't use AI. Those are my big things. And especially for covers, please help artists. But I would say the biggest thing, like Mariah said, is find your people and get on social media and find your brand.
All right, I'll piggyback off of those and then add something new. Yeah, I see a lot of people on social media and new writers chasing engagement and follower counts. And the thing that has just been such a difference maker for me has been instead to chase community and connections and have those writer friends who will support you. They not only make social media a lot more enjoyable, but they're the people that, yeah, you turn to pull you out of the dumps, to help you figure out why something isn't working. And, you know, they're there to celebrate with you, and they make the launch, they make the debut, and all of it. They make it what it is. If otherwise you feel very, very alone, and it is a high and low experience. I thought about that a lot the past year of being published, just how I was just swinging wildly between moods. Like, you get a good review and you're up, and then you go into a review lull and you are the lowest you've ever been. And just having those people to kind of stabilize you makes a big difference. As far as the contracts go, yes, read your contracts, make sure they let you read your contracts, get somebody who knows how to read contracts and read your contract. And the big thing that I think I see from a lot of writers is they don't know that you can negotiate that contract. And I would absolutely recommend that you pay attention to how vague your contract is and where you can be more specific, because most presses will let you negotiate those terms. They will let you pick specific days and years and dates. How long do you have to turn edits around? If your press has to close temporarily, how long does it take to get your rights back? Those are things that you don't want to think about, but I mean, we're living in, kind of iffy times, and those are things you need to think about. What's going to happen to your book if something happens to your press? And then just kind of one random fun fact that I found out post-querying, since I found a lot of presses to query by following other writers and seeing who they were querying. What I didn't realize was that a lot of the smaller presses, you're not querying a specific editor, you're querying kind of the press as a whole. And so what they do is they'll hire all these unpaid interns or all of these readers, and those change out seasonally. And so you might query a press and say, oh, this will be a good fit because they took so-and-so's books and our books have all these things in common, but you're not actually querying the same group of people who signed that author. You're querying a completely different subjective group. And while you can definitely and probably should, if you see similarities between you and an author and you think, hey, this would be a good fit for this press, I think you definitely should mention that in your query. Just keep in mind that if they don't take your book too, it's not necessarily, anything wrong with your book. It's just a completely different set of eyes. And that was kind of, for me, when I realized that that was actually what was happening. So, fun fact.
I would, again, echo what everyone else said about finding a group of writing friends. I'm part of a debut group for 2025, and we met the other night, and I was feeling like pretty down on some aspects of promotional stuff. And just being with that group, there's 7 of us, and just talking and everyone sharing, sort of some of the things that they're struggling with just really makes you feel less alone and makes you feel like, okay, we can do this. So definitely echo that. And then the one little thing I would add would be that if you're going with a small press, it's great to have more control and to be able to make a lot more decisions. But if you're doing that and you don't have an agent, that also means that you have to be your own best advocate. So if there's something you don't like about your cover, you have to be the one to speak up. Or if you don't like the way the internal files are formatted, no one's going to say, hey, maybe they don't like that. You've got to be the one to say, I don't like this and I want it to be different, or it's not going to get changed.
Perfect. Well, all of that was wonderful advice and tips and things. So thank you all so much. And thank you guys, all of you. So
thank you.
For the people watching, I mean, it ties into the sense of community. I have met all of you through social media over the last few years, and we've chatted and talked, and we're all at different presses, and it's really easy. You just have to step outside yourself and say, you know what, I like, what this person is saying, or, we have the same love of music or whatever, and just connect, because at the end of the day, that's all that we want, is we want to find human connection with other people in the same boat that we are in as writers and creators and just humans on this planet. So there will be information on the Writers Workout website that has all of these lovely authors' contact information, where you can find them on social media, where you can books. So please support them in their endeavors, and go on. If you've read their books, give them a review. The best thing you can do for an author is give them a review. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching our presentation today, and adios.